In the deepest, densest corners of the ancient Slavic woods, nestled between the sappy pines and twisted birch trees, stands a small wooden cottage on chicken legs. Around it is a fence fashioned from human bones and skulls that glow in the night, a fair warning to all those who dare to intrude. If you're a lost traveler who has stumbled upon this uncanny scene by mistake, you may feel the urge to flee the horrifying nightmare, and it may be wise for you to do so, because there is no room for fear once you have entered Baba Yaga's domain.
Welcome to Baba Yaga's crib, where fairy tales come to life. We're your hosts, Olga
And Veronica.
And we're here to unravel myths, legends, and paranormal encounters from around the globe, all while creating art inspired by the current topic. So light a candle, grab a pencil, and prepare to be bewitched. You've just stepped into Baba Yaga's crib.
Today we're covering our favorite characters from Slavic folklore. You can probably guess who it is based on the name of our podcast. Baba Yaga.
So who is Baba Yaga? Some call her an old witch, an evil hag that lurks in the shadows, abducting misbehaving children and devouring them. Others see her as a wise earth goddess, both nourishing and cruel like the seasons, who helps if you pass her trials or punishes if you fail. However you choose to view her, you can't deny how fascinating this character is. Baba Yaga has existed for centuries in the Slavic world in the form of oral lore, long before she was written about in books. She goes by different names, depending on the region: Yagishna, Baba Roga, Egi Baba, Yedu Baba, Yaginya. But in the mid-1800s, a Russian author, Alexander Afanasyev, collected stories from peasants featuring this old witch archetype and gave her the name that has since become widely known, Baba Yaga. In Russian, Baba means old woman or grandmother. Yaga is an old term that has several meanings, some of which include serpent, witch, or simply evil woman. Baba Yaga makes frequent appearances in many folk tales, such as Vasilisa the Beautiful, Geese Swans, the Frog Princess, the Phoenix the Brave Falcon. She is often described as a hideous hag that lives deep in the woods in a hut on chicken legs that turn if you speak the magic words, little hut, turn your back to the forest and your face to me." Unlike most witches, Baba Yaga travels in a mortar and pestle, using a broom to sweep away her tracks. She has the haggard face of an ogress and is renowned for her long, prominent nose and iron teeth that she uses to chew through human flesh and bone. She is also often referred to as Baba Yaga Kostyanaya Naga, meaning the Baba Yaga the bony leg. It is believed that this is her connection to the underworld. In some tales, she is found inside her hut, her body stretched from one corner to the other, and her long nose touching the ceiling, mimicking a corpse inside a coffin. Her role varies from story to story. Some instances she helps the hero, giving them advice or an enchanted artifact that aids them to their quests. A ball of yarn that leads travelers to their destinations, a dish with a golden apple used for scrying, a legendary sword Kledinets, or one of the magical horses from her stable. Other times she's a villain who tries to sabotage the protagonist. All in all, is a very complex character who constantly contradicts herself. Sometimes she controls the elements, other times nature turns against her, leading to her demise. Sometimes she is represented as a powerful and all-known deity, other times she's easily outwitted by the hero. She can either be a monster or she can play the role of a maternal figure, and it all depends on who you are and how you treat her. When we were growing up, I feel like Baba Yaga was viewed almost as like a old witch that's supposed to kind of like help the hero, but she's also kind of hideous and silly. She's never been like a serious character from what I remember in movies and like fairy tales and stuff. I don't think she was taken seriously in a way where it's like, oh, Baba Yaga, you should be like scared of her necessarily.
I think like when we were growing up, our parents weren't trying to scare us with fictional villains, because I feel like we already had a lot of fears. Yeah, I feel like we were scared of a lot of things already, so like our parents weren't trying to make it like worse for us and threaten us with a
They're, like,
cannibalistic
dirty.
hag that's gonna like eat us if we don't clean our room or something.
She goes by all these different names in different countries. She's viewed in different ways. But I feel like the time when we were growing up, kind of like 90s, early 2000s, I guess like the fairy tales we were watching were older. Like they were shot in like 60s or like 70s.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of them were portraying her as the silly old lady. I'm thinking like Maroska, where she's like played by a guy.
Yeah, like she's creepy,
she's
but she's
scary, yeah.
more goofy.
Yeah, goofy. That's like a good word for it because I would be more scared of her like now if I learn about it than what she was like portrayed as
Yeah.
back in the day.
Yeah, I think in those movies, like I remember a lot of cartoons, like the flying ship. There was like a bunch of Baba Yagas in that one, and they were just like singing songs and being kind of silly.
I mean, that one was cute.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't like they were making fun of them. I feel like I never, when I was growing up, was taking like Baba Yaga as like a serious character.
No, I think mostly not. I did have a fear of old people, I remember.
Really?
Yeah, when I was little, I don't know where that came from. It might have been from Baba Yaga, even though like I wasn't scared of her specifically, but for some reason I just remember being like suspicious of old people. Like I just
Like you don't know what they're up to.
I was kind of like convinced almost that they were like gonna eat me. So that must
it probably was from Baba Yaga.
Like maybe I remember there were some books that we had where there was like creepier illustrations of her.
I feel like for kids, it's kind of ingrained in your brain that it's an attractive, like pretty character that's like younger. They're usually a good character. And then if it's like evil character, it usually has like some features like a big nose or like hunched over.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch Disney movies, all of the villains are old or they have certain features that like aren't considered conventionally attractive.
Yeah. Like I just think anything different, I guess, is scary to people. Baba Yaga is a trickster archetype. Tricksters are present in many different cultures around the world. Think of Loki from Norse mythology. The trickster interferes with the lives of others, which leads to their growth and transformation. Baba Yaga does the same in her stories. She tests the hero, forcing them to shed the weak, useless parts of their identity so that they can morph into a stronger and better version of themselves. Baba Yaga also has a lot of helpers, such as talking animals, personified riders of day, sun, and night, and a pair of disembodied hands that do her bidding. Everything around seems to be alive and sentient. Her home, her fans, the trees, the river, the wind. Sometimes she's said to live in the thrice 9 kingdoms, in the 30th realm, beyond the fiery river. And sometimes there's more than one Baba Yaga, and she has sisters who all go by the same name. Here's an excerpt from fairy tale The Maiden Tsar by Alexander Afanasiev, where a merchant's son, Ivan, seeks out Baba Yaga for help. He journeyed onward, straight ahead, and finally he came to a little hut. It stood in the open field, turning on chicken legs. He entered and found Baba Yaga the bony-legged. "Fee, fee," she said. "The Russian smell was never heard of nor caught sight of here, but it has come by itself. Are you here for your own free will or by compulsion, my good youth?" "Largely of my own free will and twice as much by my compulsion. Do you know, Baba Yaga, where lies the thrice 10th kingdom?" "No, I do not," she said, and told him to go to her second sister, she might know.
The Russian smell is referring to like the smell of the living because Baba Yaga is associated with death and like she herself is a corpse, like with the way that she's laying in her hut, like a coffin, and so she smells like the living, and that's what she means when she says the Russian smell.
This might give us an idea as to why I hear so many different versions of her. Why is she nice to some stories and evil in others? She's not the same person. There are a bunch of Baba Yagas all around the world. There might be one living in your own town right now, and you don't even know. Baba Yaga is said to capture children and eat them, much like the witch from Hansel and Gretel. So where did this belief come from? Well, back in the day, there was a ritual called rebaking, which involved placing a newborn into an oven. Yeah, apparently it was a
Sorry.
thing.
I've never heard of that.
Me neither. If a baby was born prematurely, they would place the infant on a bread paddle and insert them 3 times into a warm oven, which symbolized the female womb. There, the baby would finish baking, allowing it to become stronger. A similar method was used to treat older children if they got sick. They would be placed on the paddle and carefully brought close to a burning oven. In this case, it was believed that the illness would burn away and exit through the chimney with the smoke, and the child would become healthier.
It's like cleansing with fire and smoke almost.
Yeah. Mom was telling me that apparently grandpa, when he was growing up in the village, they would bathe kids inside like the pechka, like the oven of the pechka.
Yeah, we should mention the Russian oven is really big.
Yes.
So it's different from a regular oven.
Pretty much pechka like is considered to be like the heart of the house because it would warm the house. That was the heating system pretty much back in the day before they had actual like furnace and stuff like that. They would just burn wood and then they would cook on it as well. You can also sleep on top of it. So that was like a practice. I don't know how common it was. It sounds kind of crazy though.
It's also, I don't think it was just like a magical ritual where they like rebake the child. I think that was part of it, but I think it's also like there's science behind it. Like
Yeah, I
being
guess like
inside
just
the warm oven kind of
Yeah.
makes your blood flow and
Yeah.
like warm you up.
it's like hot yoga.
Yeah. That would be horrifying. Imagine you're like a child and they just place you on a paddle and like you just go into an oven. I feel like that would cause some
Trauma. Yeah.
But did you die?
This ritual was performed by a village healer, usually an older woman. Thus, the version of Baba Yaga as a sorcerer and healer is not unfounded. The fairy tale merely flipped the sign from plus, rebaking a child benefits them, to a minus, the witch roasts and eats children, which may have occurred due to the rise of Christianity.
Which?
So, paganism was the main religion in Eastern Europe that lasted from the 6th century to the Christianization, which occurred at different times among different groups and areas, but was generally completed by the 13th century. Unfortunately, we don't know much about Slavic paganism. Back then, most people didn't know how to read or write, so they weren't able to keep records of these things. The best insight into pagan Slavic religion actually comes from folk tales. Even after the Slavs converted to Christianity, traces of their old beliefs stuck around and didn't completely disappear. For example, the pagan holiday Maslenitsa, also known as Butterwheat, is celebrated to this day. The traditions surrounding this holiday include baking crepes and burning the sculpture of the goddess of winter, Morana, symbolizing the return of the sun and start of spring. While Christianization was mainly completed by the 10th century, people's beliefs didn't completely change overnight. Many people kept practicing their old traditions, blending pagan beliefs with the new Christian ones. As a result, a lot of folk stories still include parts of the old Slavic myth and religion. It wasn't uncommon for Christian saints to take on the roles or traits of Slavic gods, and people often honored them in a way that reflected earlier pagan practices. I definitely think a lot of negative attributes that were given to Baba Yaga were due to the rise of Christianity and the need to turn people away from paganism.
Yeah, for sure. I think her image became distorted over the years. I think Baba Yaga basically just symbolizes these women who were healers and like helping people through the use of like magic and like herbal medicine.
I think the most haunting interpretation of Baba Yaga is that of a guardian of the underworld. That's why her home is always described as being deep in the forest or far away from civilization. For the Slavs, this represented the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the dead. Forests were often associated with mystery, death, and magic. places where people were buried and strange things could happen, which might explain why Baba Yaga's hut is always hidden there. Some say that the reason you say the magic words little hut, turn your back to the forest and your face to me, is for the hut to open the portal into the underworld or to enter the fairy tale. Because usually like the protagonist would like come up to the hut and say the magic words, and then it would turn around and then they would walk into it. Or like the Baba Yaga would open the door and like let them in. But I always wondered like why can't the person walk around and step into versus like making a turn. Maybe it's just the misogyny.
Misogyny? Why?
Just because he's like turn
telling
around
her what
for
to
me.
do.
Yeah. That was based on the theory from the morphology of the folktale by Vladimir Prop. Her hut is more than just a creepy house, but a representation of a grave. In ancient times, people were sometimes buried in special wooden structures called domavinas, which were small houses built on tall tree stumps. The roots sticking out from underneath these stumps looked a lot like chicken legs, just like Baba Yaga's famous hut.
I think I've heard of like people living in houses that were elevated from the ground to protect from predators like bears and wolves.
Oh yeah.
But how come they buried like people in there?
So basically in like a northern areas, because of winter, or sometimes I also saw variation where it's like very wet, like where the ground is kind of sinking. So people didn't want to bury people. Well, first of all, if it is like a northern climate, they didn't want to put people in the frozen ground because it's so hard to dig a grave.
Yeah, that would be impossible.
So that was part of it, I think. And also another variation where it was very like swampy areas. They didn't want to bury people there because then the body would come up.
Ooh, you don't want that.
Yeah, so I feel like that was kind of like them solving that issue back in the day. The bones and skulls surrounding her home could also represent the remains of the ancestors. In the tale of Vasilisa the Beautiful, Baba Yaga gives her the glowing skull that lights her path and leads her back home. The skull then incinerates the evil stepmother and her stepsisters, which could be interpreted as ancestor protecting Vasilisa.
That's so cool. I never thought of the idea that the skulls and the bones surrounding her hut represent like the ancestors. It's almost like a graveyard.
She's almost like worshipping them.
Yeah, because the implication was always that she eats people and that's their remains. But another version of that is it's actually like a burial ground. And she is the keeper.
Yeah. No, that is like a cool representation of that. Definitely there's different kind of variations of how you can look at these things, but I'd like to think that she's a good witch.
I like that too.
It just depends who stumbles upon her hut.
You kind of have to prove yourself.
Yeah.
To get her help.
And back to Damavinas. The word Damavinas means little house of death. And this burial practice was common in cooler climates, especially in places where frozen ground made it hard to dig proper graves. These tiny houses were placed deep in the forest with their doors and windows facing empty, quiet spaces, so the dead wouldn't be disturbed by the daily lives of the living. Today, they're probably called something like that, a burial vault or a crypt. When someone died, their body was placed in a coffin-like bed inside the Damavina, along with their belongings and preserved food. This ritual has a practical side to it. In times of famine or during attacks from nomads, people would sometimes hide in the houses in the forest. The spirits of their ancestors weren't seen as threatening. They were actually believed to help by offering shelter and food. After a danger passed, the supplies used by the living were replaced as a way to show respect and gratitude to their ancestors. There's a lot of traditions in Eastern Europe that stayed from paganism and even Western cultures, just like the way that we bury people and giving some type of respect to the dead and just different practices. Like, it's really interesting. I feel like we should do an episode on that. Yeah. Like different
burial methods.
Yeah. Well,
honoring ancestors.
Yeah.
I mean, even the idea that like people gave food to the ancestors, It's present in so many cultures, and like even now, whenever like our grandma visits the graves of like our family members, she always brings either like some kind of alcohol as an offering, or
Flowers.
like candy, flowers, like food of some kind. And then I think another reason is it's not only an offering to the dead, but also people just like in need, like people that might need food will go to the graveyards and take it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's disrespectful. I think that's just...
It's like the intention.
It's also like the energy. You like remember them, and like you keep their memory alive by honoring them in this way.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I scoured the internet in search of stories that describe real life encounters with Baba Yaga.
Ooh.
And I found a few that I think you might find interesting. Warning, those stories are so spooky they might turn your hair gray, so proceed at your own discretion. Also, all these stories were written in Russian and have been translated to English. Okay, here we go. Okay, so the first story is from a website called Kryper.net.
Kryper or creeper?
Kryper with an I. Story number 1. Baba Yaga. That's what it's called. I wanted to tell you a story that happened to me in childhood. The story is not made up. I'm writing everything as I remember it. So many years have passed, but I still remember some moments vividly and clearly. Even the most memorable dreams don't stay in your head for so long, so I'm sure this wasn't a dream. I was about 5 or 6 years old when my parents started putting me to bed in my grandfather's room. I don't remember him very well, just how he would lie in that room and read books. I don't remember how he died at all. My grandmother had died before him, and I didn't remember that either. My grandmother and grandfather weren't my blood relatives. They were my stepfather's parents. I was almost never afraid of the dark. I would fall asleep facing the door, which was open to the lit hallway, and I could watch my parents walking back and forth from the living room to the kitchen. The hallway was lit by a single ordinary light bulb, and I lay in semi-darkness. Behind my bed was a window, from which spilled a little orange glow from the dim street lamps of St. Petersburg. I remember it being stuffy. I remember the warmth from the radiators under the window, so it must have been winter. And then one evening, I was lying there calmly, watching the hallway, watching the strip of light from it, when something strange happened. Someone started stroking my hair. I wasn't scared at the time. I was small. I hadn't seen horror movies yet, only kind Soviet cartoons. I leaned my head lightly against the pillow and lifted my eyes to see who was touching me. Behind the headboard of my little bed sat an old woman. I don't know what she was sitting on, maybe a small chair. She was thin, with gray hair, and was dressed in something unremarkable. I don't remember well what exactly. Right away, I understood that this was Baba Yaga. My mother had told me fairy tales about her. What else could a little kid think? She stopped stroking me and began combing my hair with a comb, probably wooden, like a white-toothed one. By then I was frightened, so I lay still. I managed only to ask, "Are you Baba Yaga?" "Yes," she answered in a low, quiet voice. "Are you going to eat me?" "Yes." "Are you going to eat Mom and Dad?" "Yes." She answered as if she didn't care what she was saying. Her voice carried no expression. Now it seemed to me that she didn't even understand what I was asking her. As she answered my questions, she never stopped combing my hair. I remember how she tilted her head this way and that, admiring what she was doing. The atmosphere in the room was strange, hot, as if some kind of humming heaviness resonated around me. I don't know how to describe it better. It was like before a strong thunderstorm. The air charged, the smell of ozone, the tension. You could feel something similar in the room. I remember her bony hands. I can't recall exactly if she had long nails, but something hazy stirs in my memory. The hand seemed strange to me. I don't remember if I asked her anything else. I recall being silent while she combed my hair and stroked me. I remember feeling very sleepy, and then I drifted off, and the next day, I don't remember at all. This incident had stayed with me my whole life. I remember those sensations, that strange atmosphere, everything vividly and clearly. Even at 22, I sometimes shiver when I'm alone in a room and remember that distant night. Since then, I don't like when anyone strokes my head or combs my hair. What do you think
Do you
about
think
that
it was?
one?
I don't know if it was Baba Yaga. I kind of feel like it was like a spirit or something she saw.
I definitely think it was his grandma. Because he said his grandma passed away and they used to live in this room. So it must have been her.
Why did she say, though, that she would, like, eat him?
Well, he mentioned that it seemed like she didn't understand what he was asking her. Maybe he was quiet. Maybe she was deaf when she was alive. And, like...
Maybe.
She was just, like, trying to comfort him, but then...
Yeah, like, it
scared
seemed like it
him.
was a comforting experience, but it's also scary for him.
I think it was definitely, like, a nice spirit, like his grandmother visiting him. But it's definitely unsettling. I think if that happened to me, it would creep me out, even if it was someone I knew.
But I feel like when you hear experiences like that, like paranormal stuff, it usually, if it is like your relative or something that's visiting you in your dream or like in your room, they're usually say something like, don't worry, I'm okay. Or like they're trying to give you some more peace. But like, I guess like brushing the hair was more like a calming gesture. Yeah. So I don't think like she was like an evil spirit.
No, I don't think she was trying to scare him or hurt him, but I think even if it's like a nice spirit, I think the experience can still be kind of unsettling.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're interacting with something supernatural and...
Not something you're like used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this story definitely sounds like something that could have happened.
Yeah. No, it's just, I don't think it's Baba Yaga, but...
No, I don't think it was her either, but I thought it was interesting. And I like it the way it was written.
That was good.
Very spooky. Okay, story 2 is from a website called fourstore.ru. So let's begin. I was on my way home. Smooth, even asphalt. Something we rarely come across. The car glided noiselessly along the road. Around me was a pleasant darkness. A gentle rain was falling, tracing beautiful patterns on the windows. Lovely music was playing from the speakers. What could be better than a pleasant drive? Suddenly, the car sneezed, then again and again, like an owl from a cartoon, and then it completely stopped. Damn it, I cursed. And of course this happened just 5 kilometers from the city. Stupid car. Only the navigator is any good. Useless piece of junk. I got out of the car and made an unpleasant discovery. The rain, which had seemed so pleasant from the inside, was actually nasty outside. You know the kind. Fine, misty, not really wet, but cold, and you can't see a damn thing in front of you.
Is that written by a guy?
Yeah. What?
I don't know, you can feel it. The anger.
Rude. Anger problems. There was a flashlight in the car. I grabbed it and tried to figure out what happened to my baby. But without the tools I had so brilliantly forgotten, I couldn't do anything. I pulled the door handle, and it wouldn't open. Locked. I patted myself down in hopes of finding the key, and then realized in panic that it was somehow inside the car. I called a tow truck. Thank God my cell phone was in my pocket. But of course I didn't feel like waiting around. Stupid rain. I had already walked a couple of kilometers when I saw a silhouette up ahead. Well, I thought, at least I won't be bored walking. I came up alongside the figure. It was an old woman in a gray kerchief, a long shabby dress, and a wool sweater. In her hand she carried a broom and a small handbag stuffed full to the brim. To the sound of the rain was added a strange, quiet tapping, but I didn't really pay much attention. Sweeping the road, Granny? I tried to joke. The old woman raised her head, and that look froze me in place. Piercing, like a predator's. It cut straight into my soul and made me shrink inside myself. And her face, it was terrifying. Wrinkled and shriveled, her lips thin and cracked. Her nose hung over her upper lip, though it didn't jut out much. Her forehead and chin were decorated with huge warts. Well, if you're not Baba Yaga herself, I blurted out. Rude. He just shit all over this old lady.
I know, he's so mean.
I don't like this guy.
All those wrinkles, look at that nose.
Disgusting. Suddenly, lightning flashed. In its light, I saw, looming over her, a black shadow with tall horns. The shadow stretched its arms toward me. Then the light disappeared. I stumbled backward. Suddenly, the old woman's bag burst open, and something round rolled out. I shone my flashlight and screamed. Polished skulls lay scattered right on the asphalt. I howled and bolted. Like a wolf. I don't know how far I ran, but when I finally stopped and looked back, the old woman was about 15 meters behind me. She raised her hand and muttered something. It was as if I had been tied with a rope and yanked, because a second later I was kissing the asphalt, face first.
Asphalt.
Thump, scrape, thump, scrape, thump, scrape, thump. I heard that sound, and God help me, I saw where it came from. Sticking out from under her dress was something white like a stick. But no, it was a leg, a bony leg. The old woman began sweeping the road with her broom. My insides twisted in horror. She made a circle with the broom. My heart stabbed with sharp pain. That's when the panic set in. The crone approached, lightning flashed, and I saw that black shadow again, reaching its hands toward my head. And then suddenly, it was as if someone began whispering words into my ear. A prayer, but in a strange language, possibly Latin. The old woman froze.
It wasn't a prayer.
Yeah. The old woman froze, her face twisted in pure malice. Then her bony leg tapped toward the forest, and I just kept whispering the prayer, unable to stop. I was in shock and panic. I couldn't stand. The pain inside was unbearable. So I just lay there praying until the tow truck finally picked me up. Since then, in every quiet room, in every crowd, I sometimes hear the tapping of her leg and see her piercing gaze of her eyes. Thump, scrape, thump, scrape, thump, scrape, thump, thump, scrape.
ASMR.
Scrape, thump, scrape, thump.
That guy had it coming though.
He did. He was rude from the start and he got what he deserved, I think.
Yeah. Now he's gonna know not to make fun of old ladies.
Yeah. I think
That was a cautionary tale.
Yeah, I think in this case, Baba Yaga definitely saw his rotten soul and was like, you deserve a little scare.
What was the shadow, I wonder?
Who's Satan? The devil. Don't mess with Baba Yaga.
Yeah.
And her bony leg. Okay, should we move on to the next story?
Yeah.
Okay, story 3. How I ran into Baba Yaga. This story is from a website called VK Vkontakte, which is like basically Russian Facebook or European Facebook. A lot of people in Eastern Europe use it, I think. Okay, here we go. This happened a long time ago when I was about 9. In the summer, my parents sent me to my grandmother's village in the Saratov region. My friends and I decided to sneak off into the forest, and I ended up getting a little lost. Eventually, though, I managed to find my way out and return to the village. The western edge of the village was practically deserted, and by then it was already late. After passing a couple of abandoned lots, I came across a small house that, oddly enough, didn't have a proper foundation. Instead, it seemed to stand on 4 large stumps. At the time, I didn't think much of it. What caught my attention was the smoke rising from the chimney. I was terribly thirsty, so I decided to ask for some help. An old woman came out of the house. She looked unkempt and a little frightening. She wore a long white nightshirt, and from her head hung low, gray, untidy hair that fell all the way down to her hips, sticking out in every direction, as if she never even heard of a comb. Rude again. Why are you insulting this lady?
Unkept hair.
Unkempt.
You have fashion, please.
Yeah, 9-year-old. Probably had shitty pants on.
You're just like bashing this.
We're like, how dare you make fun of people and make fun of him? For the first 5 seconds, it seemed like she didn't even see me. Her gaze was vacant. But after I asked if she could bring me a glass of water, she reacted. Noticing me, her gloomy expression suddenly shifted to an overly kind and cheerful one. What are you doing here? Alone so late? You didn't get lost, did you? She asked. I was playing in the forest with the other kids and then got lost. Could I please have a drink? I explained politely. You must be cold, too. Come inside. I'll make you some tea. I've got strawberry pancakes. Delicious ones. I can't. I need to get home. My grandmother will be worried, I politely declined. Oh, come now. How can you go hungry and cold? Do you want to upset your grandmother even more? No, I won't let you go. Come inside. I couldn't resist the old woman any longer, and I accepted her invitation to have a cup of tea. Inside, I was surprised to see that she was cooking on a traditional Russian stove, even though gas had long since been brought into the village. She set a samovar on the table, poured me some tea, and placed a plate of those very pancakes in front of me. Then she sat across from me, resting her cheek on her hand and staring at me intently with a smile, almost hungrily. After about 15 minutes, I stood up, ready to leave, when she grabbed my hand and suggested I stay the night. It was dark and dangerous outside, after all. For some reason, my heart started pounding, even though the old woman hadn't done anything bad to me. I had no hidden suspicions. I was just worried my grandmother would be anxious and out looking for me. The strange old woman was insistent and stubborn, so instead of arguing, I simply ran out while she was making up a bed for me on the stove. On my way home, I was sure I'd be in for it, that my grandmother would scold me harshly. But by some miracle, she hadn't even noticed I was gone. She had slept through the whole evening, which was very unusual for her. Just 2 days later, my grandmother and I went out in the morning to gather mushrooms and berries. We took the very same path I'd used when I returned home that night, and there it was again, the same house standing on 4 stumps. As we passed by, I decided to ask my grandmother, Grandma, who lives in that creepy house? I've lived in this village for more than half a century, and for as long as I can remember, no one has ever lived there. But don't go near it, my boy. It's not a good place. When I was your age, they used to tell scary stories about that little house on 4 stumps. They even said that one boy once went inside and never came out again, she said with a chuckle, clearly not believing her own words.
Was it Damavina?
Could be. I mean, it wasn't in the forest.
Well, she also didn't say that it was.
I don't think it was like tall tree stumps. I think it was just like little ones.
Yeah, like it didn't have the base, the proper base
Yeah.
of the house. It was just like set up on. That's it.
Yeah. What would you do?
There's no ending.
That was the ending, I guess.
I feel like I would go back and check.
Just go inside.
Well, the first time he got out of there, so clearly she's not that evil.
I don't know. He ran out while she was like distracted.
Prepping the oven.
Kind of like in the fairy tales.
What, you think like she was gonna eat him? That's why she was like fattening him up with food?
I don't know. She said that a boy went in and never came out again. So maybe if he stayed the night, she would have taken him to the underworld.
What if she was a creepy lady that was doing something creepy, pretending she lived there, and then she would lure kids in or something? But I feel like it didn't seem that scary though.
Yeah, it sounds very similar to fairy tales. The Baba Yaga fairy tale. As an adult, you like come to her for advice, but as a child, you like don't want to be near her because maybe you're not ready.
Maybe she also doesn't like kids.
Okay, this story is from the website forstore.ru. I was born and raised in Arkhangelsk. I want to tell you what happened to me. It took place in the fall on the night of September 16th to 17th, 1981. At the time, I was 24, about to turn 25. 2 friends and I went by motorboat to the White Sea coast in the forest to pick berries. We left early in the morning while it was still dark and arrived after sunrise. The forest was dense. I had never been there before. After a quick snack, we checked our bearings with a compass just in case and went deeper into the forest to gather berries. We picked until it began to get dark. Then we started back towards where we had left the boat, but got lost. We wandered until night had fallen completely. Suddenly, in the swampy part of the forest, we stumbled across an old abandoned hut. We were relieved and decided to stay there until dawn. At 3 a.m, I woke up. I needed to step outside. My friends were still asleep. I went out of the hut. The forest was unusually quiet. The night was clear, stars shimmering overhead. I had just finished my business and was about to go back inside when I suddenly heard a rising hum from far away. The sky darkened rapidly, turning pitch black. Thunder cracked. Lightning flashed. I stood still, waiting to see what would happen next, surprised at the sudden change in the weather. Then hail began to fall. and out of the black sky above the forest, I saw a glowing point of light moving quickly toward me. I froze, wondering what it could be. Could it really be a UFO? The object came down low enough that I could see it clearly. A woman with flowing hair, riding astride a cylinder glowing blue from the back.
Hell yeah!
I just feel like there should be like a guitar solo playing in the background. I stood like I was spellbound, unable to move, though I tried. The woman shook her finger at me, or at least that's what it looked like. Maybe she didn't, I can't say for sure, but at that moment, it was as if an electric current surged through my entire body. Then, with a sudden speed, the woman shot away, becoming just a glowing dot again, and then vanished altogether. I stood there for a while, staring at the sky, which quickly cleared and filled again with stars. Then I went back inside and fell asleep. In the morning, when everyone woke up, my friends were shocked. "What happened to your hair? You're completely gray." I didn't believe them until I looked in the mirror. Then I told them about what happened that night. My friends hadn't experienced anything, no changes to their appearance at all. But me, for reasons unknown, I've been walking around with a head of white hair ever since that night, gray like a 90-year-old man that was only 25. I still wonder, was it some kind of alien woman? Or a witch? Maybe we had taken over her hut. But if it really was a witch, she must have been a rather kind one. Usually in stories, they do far worse things. And of course the doctors could never explain my sudden graying. Some sort of bodily anomaly was all they said.
It's funny because like in all these stories, it's always like just the scary lady that everyone sees, but it's like she doesn't really do much other than just like look scary.
Yeah, just like an old woman existing. It's
Yeah,
like,
this old lady just doing her own thing.
She's walking down the road, witch. She's riding.
Baba Yaga.
She's riding a mortar and pestle in the sky and making lightning flash, witch. Can't women just have hobbies?
Typical witch.
This story is from the website kryper.net. I recently met up with an old friend from school, Slavic. When he found out about my interest in strange life stories, he told me this one. According to Slava, this whole strange episode began back in the distant years when he was just an 8th grader at a Novosibirsk middle school. One winter, during the new holidays, a buddy of his came to visit from a small town in the Urals. That new year in Novosibirsk started with wild frosts close to -40. Even Siberians and Ural boys, hardy as they were, couldn't last long playing hockey on the ice that rang from the brutal cold. So like it or not, Slavka and his friend Vasya had to stay indoors. Back then, the kids didn't have computers, smartphones, tablets, or even color TVs with endless films and shows to channel their energy. The boys got bored quickly, cooped up in the big apartment, tired of playing hide and seek or simple board games. Soon though, stuck inside by the frost, they found themselves a new pastime. They opened the thick phone book, sat by the telephone, and began dialing random numbers, congratulating strangers with Happy New Year. Luckily, both Slavka parents were at work, so no one could stop their mischief. I like how that's mischief, just saying Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Like they weren't even.
It's not really prank.
No.
They're just like, Happy New Year.
Yeah. This pastime especially thrilled Vasya, the guest from the Urals. His family lived in a 2-story wooden barrack with no such marvels of civilization as a telephone. Plus, there was always a chance of chatting up a city girl, something to brag about back home. In the phone book, alongside numbers and addresses, were people's full names. The boys mostly chose women's names, though they didn't mind dialing anyone with a funny surname either, just to make some cheeky joke at the poor soul who picked up. If you came across a name like Ubey Volk, Kill the Wolf, or Golopupinka, there was always something you could say to entertain the person. So the boys amused themselves this way until they dialed the next number. Slavka's phone had an extension, so both boys could listen and talk at once. When Vasya cheerfully launched into, "Hello, Happy New Year, wishing you happiness in your personal life," and so on, a young woman's voice answered on the other end. "Thank you, that's so nice to hear. And who are you?" Now, Vasya, growing up in a small provincial town, always felt awkward in the big city. On top of that, his name, Vasya, so rural sounding, embarrassed him. So when chatting with girls, he never gave his real name. He introduced himself as Ruslan, Timur, or something else, but never as Vasya. To this friendly girl, he gave another such made-up name. As the phone book showed, the girl really was Lyudmila Sukharukova. Slavka remembered the name well, and as it turned out, many years later, it had been a kind prophecy. But more on that later. Anyway, Vasya and his romantic, talkative Lyudmila spoke for about 2 hours. From then on, he forgot about the phone book and spent all the remaining holiday days dialing only her number. Even when the weather cleared and the other boys dragged him outside, Vasya made excuses to rush home, where he'd spin the dial and call his mysterious stranger. Of course he longed to meet her, but she lived far away, somewhere near Dalmachevo airport, and Vasya was painfully shy. By her voice, she sounded at least 20, older than him by 5 years or more. So no meeting ever happened, and the holiday drew to a close. Before leaving, Vasya wanted to tell Lyudmila his real name, and maybe exchange addresses to keep writing letters. But this time the conversation didn't flow. Slavka, listening in, noticed his friend either fell into awkward silence or babbled nonsense. Gone were his witty jokes. Finally, after another long pause, Vasya suddenly blurted out in a trembling voice, "Luda, I love you." Slavka nearly choked, trying not to laugh. But what happened next struck both boys like thunder from a clear sky. After Vasya's words, there was silence. Then, a creaky, disgusting old woman's laughter came from the receiver. The hideous cackling went on for a full minute before a harsh, scraping voice croaked, "And do you know how old I am, little Vasichka?"
Catfished.
And then came more wheezing, horrific laughter. The boys were paralyzed with dread. How did she know his real name? Neither Vasya or Slavka had ever mentioned it. And what kind of witch was this who had suddenly turned from a sweet-voiced Dudichka into a cackling hag? Terrified, they ran to a classmate of Slavka's and begged her to call the number instead. She agreed, dialed, and asked, "Can I speak to Lyudmila, please?" To which the same creaky old voice replied, "I'm listening." The boys were stunned, especially Vasya, whose youthful dreams had just been crushed. He spent the rest of the holidays gloomy and silent. Even Slavka's parents worried he might be sick. The next day, Vasya left for the Urals and life moved on. Years passed, the boys grew up, wrote letters for a while, then stopped. Neither mentioned the strange episode with Lyudmila again. But fate has a strange way of reuniting people. Nearly 4 decades later, Slava and Vasya met again at a Black Sea sanitarium. They recognized each other at once, and, as old friends do, sat down to share a drink. And over a cup of tea, Vasya told his childhood friend what happened to him afterward. Whether it had anything to do with Lyudmila, you can judge for yourself. After returning from Novosibirsk, Vasya eventually forgot about her. He served in the army, got married, had a baby girl. Tragically, she died before turning 1. Later, he and his wife tried for more children, but it never worked out. Eventually, the couple split. Vasya lived with a few women after that, but never found lasting happiness. He was always restless. Off to the garage, off to the forest for berries or mushrooms. Not many women wanted to keep house for such a man. In the end, he lived alone. One day, on a solo mushroom trip in the woods, he stumbled upon something terrifying. He heard clucking, like a chicken, but unnaturally loud. Curious, he followed the sound. It came to a clearing with a huge old stump. Mushrooms grew thick on top of it, and around the stump hopped a completely naked old woman. She was no less than 90, maybe 100. Her yellow, wrinkled skin stretched over bones and ribs. Long gray hair flew wildly as she jumped and spun. She clutched a knife in one hand, and in the other a black rooster held tight by its legs. But the strange part, the clucking sound, weren't from the rooster. They came from her. Dancing and clucking, she suddenly slashed the rooster's head off. Blood spurted, and she began drinking it straight from the neck stump, smearing it across her face and chest. Vasya nearly vomited, but frozen in terror, he didn't move. When the rooster finally stopped flapping, she tossed it aside and continued her hideous ritual on the stump. Vaisa couldn't take it anymore. He turned to flee, but stepped on a branch. The crack gave him away. The clucking stopped. Without looking back, Vaisa tore through the forest in blind panic, branches tearing at him, mushrooms flying from his bucket. He ran until he found a railway stop hours later. Soaked from the rain, exhausted, he finally boarded the train home. But as he sat down, trying to doze off, he felt eyes on him. He opened his own and nearly screamed. Across the aisle sat the old woman. Not naked, no blood this time, just a shawl over her hair. But it was her, the same witch. Her yellow eyes glowed in the dim carriage light. Vaisa sat frozen until the next station. He leapt off, hoping to escape, but to his horror, she also got off from the opposite end of the carriage. Terrified, he jumped back onto the moving train, watching her fade into the distance. Relieved, he sat again. Maybe I imagined it, he thought. She's just some crazy old woman. At the final stop, as Vaisa was about to step onto the platform, he heard behind him. "Give me your hand, Vasichka." He turned and nearly fainted. It was her. Again. She grabbed his hand. Her palm was like a dry stick, rough and hard. She gripped tightly, then looked deep into his eyes, and with a predator's gaze and whispered, "Vasichka," then shuffled away. Vaisa never saw her again, but the hand he had given her soon began to ache. His skin turned yellow and shriveled, his fingers twisted. Within 2 days, his arm lost all feeling. Because of this, he was declared disabled, which, ironically, is why he ended up in this very Black Sea sanitarium, where fate brought him face to face again with Slavka, his old friend. The end.
Damn, that sounds like dark magic.
I mean, blood sacrifice.
Also, it seems like she was just punishing him this whole life. Did she curse him or something? Because that's kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, in this one, she's definitely kind of mean.
Kind of.
Like,
she's just like following him.
Yeah.
Throughout his life.
Was it her? Was it the same lady, or is it a different one?
I don't know. Well, I mean, like, it wasn't
like
the
same one, because she
like,
knew his name.
That was the intention, I think, like, to be like, this is the same thing, like, following him. I don't even know if that's like a real person or if it was like a spirit or something.
Maybe. Yeah, it
like,
sounds
what
like...
if he was calling and then, like, he was like inviting...
He reached the other side. I feel like I have goosebumps.
I know, it's kind of creepy because it's where you're like inviting that like energy into your life, because he's also positive. He wasn't like really pranking people. Yeah. So like he didn't have like a bad intention behind it.
Yeah, I wonder if the warning is like, don't talk to strangers. This is what happens.
I guess.
But it's pretty brutal. It does seem like she kind of cursed him for the rest of his life.
Yeah, because, like, his relationship didn't work out. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean because of the whole curse, but it's, like, the whole disability part of it. It's, like, after she, like, touched his arm. Also, like, yeah, the blood sacrifice was creepy.
Catfished.
By Baba Yaga.
Going wrong. Yeah, this was definitely the darkest story.
Yeah.
Especially because it happened to, like, a kid.
Mm-hmm. That's why I feel bad, because he wasn't even doing anything bad.
I know, in this story, he was just having fun, like calling people, like not even trying to be rude. He ran into a demonic...
Yeah, that kind of sounds
spirit.
Like demonic.
Demonic entity.
He saw her in the forest initially, and then he saw her like later on the train. It almost seems like she's a spirit, a
she's
demon
like
or something.
Him. From his childhood.
Yeah, it literally sounds like something demonic. That's something you do after like a Ouija board.
Yeah. But it's interesting because they weren't trying to talk to ghosts or anything. They were just talking on the phone.
Yeah, but I mean, when I was little, I was talking on the phone with my friend, and the line just changed. Like, we were talking for hours. All of a sudden, halfway through our conversation, there was just like a random line that almost connected to us, and it was a grandma talking to a kid or something.
Oh, what the hell?
On the phone, and we like heard their conversation, and we were just like, what's going on?
Oh,
and then
that's weird.
Yeah, and then like they heard us too. I think after a certain point we hung up, and then we called back and we're like, what was that?
I wonder when he would call that number, what if that number belonged to someone who passed away and she answered as like her young self and like catfished him?
Maybe. Or could it be like an older person that just wanted to talk to someone on the phone?
How did she change her voice though?
I feel like, I mean, you can change your voice and make sound creepier.
Maybe it was actually just like a younger girl, and then she
Yeah, that's what I'm
was
saying.
just making fun of him, and then she did like the old person voice to scare.
But the fact that they talk so often, I'd like to stick with the idea that it was like some demonic thing, but
yeah, I mean,
if you're trying to be more logical, I guess you could say that he just got catfished.
I mean, the whole thing in the forest with the rooster and the blood and the hand.
So who is Baba Yaga? She is not simply a witch nor a monster. She is the wild forest and the unknown beyond it. She is nurturing mother and devouring hag. She is the line between childhood and adulthood, between life and death. Baba Yaga isn't here to scare you. She's here to test you. And if you pass, she just might help you find your way. So this was our first episode. Let us know how we did. Please don't be mean to us. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. If you want to check out our art for today's episode, check out our Instagram at Baba Yaga's Crib. And see you next time if you find your way back.